Some details about the list of goods which Russia is banning are now emerging, and it's expected to include specific vegetables, fruit and meat products. Officials say it will not target wine or baby food. And Moscow's decision has been picked up by major news outlets across the globe. EU's ambassador to Russia says that the restrictions will not affect the EU's position on Ukraine, while diplomatic sources in Europe describe Russia's sanctions as counterproductive and unjustified. Well, let's talk about them in a little more detail now with Caleb Maupin, a political analyst from the International Action Centre, who joins us now. Thanks so much, Caleb. Obviously, people have called this a retaliation for Western sanctions on Russia. But how would you say the two sets of sanctions actually match up?
Well, it's important to be clear that what sanctions are is an economic warfare. When the U.S. or Western countries sanction a country, they're trying to cut it off from international trade, and that results in a lot of suffering in that country. And because the world economy is centered around Western banks and corporations, they have the ability to kind of attack countries. So Russia is responding to what's being done by the United States. The leaders of Russia have made clear they have no desire for a conflict with the United States. They don't want to get into a conflict. They're not seeking any aggression, but yet the United States is attacking them. The United States is putting them in a corner. The United States has overthrown the democratic government of the Ukraine. The United States continues to put these sanctions on Russia. So Russia is taking action to protect itself. This is economic warfare between two countries, and the United States is clearly the aggressor.
OK, we heard after those Western sanctions how sometimes sanctions can actually be self-harming. So what do you think about these Russian ones? How much will they damage the people they're intended to damage, and how much will they actually harm Russia?
Well, we'll only have to see. We'll have to see what happens. But the whole situation is extremely unfortunate. The Russian government doesn't want a confrontation with the United States. It's the United States with its aggression that has kind of pushed Russia into a corner and forced Russia to take actions like this. You know, it would be one thing if there were hostility on both sides, but that's not the case. The U.S. cannot allow any competitors in the global market to emerge, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, any country that emerges and is a competitor to the United States, especially as Russia is a competitor in oil and natural gas. The U.S. simply wants to beat them down and suppress them. This is the the economic interests of the United States. The U.S. hegemony must be maintained, and that requires actions like this, which are detrimental to human life and human needs all across the world. People are going to be harmed by these sanctions, not just in Russia but all over the world. And many of the U.S. allies in Britain and in Germany and elsewhere are also going to be harmed by these sanctions. This isn't just an attack on Russia. This is an attack on Germany, especially. The sanctions on Russia the U.S. has passed are very harmful to Germany. So this is going to cause unrest and discontent around the world, and it's going to cause more rivalry and more tension. And it's unfortunate, but Russia has no choice. They have to respond to this attack, the economic warfare from the United States.
And Caleb, I'm just interested, I mean, we are only just getting initial details of these Russian sanctions, but, I mean, by comparison, the Western ones, they were attacking financial institutions, major banks, Russian airlines. Well, what we're getting so far from Russia, we're talking about meat imports and vegetable imports. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like we're even talking about the same kind of extent here. Do you see these as retaliation? Do you see them as considerable sanctions?
I think Russia has to do something. It's clear that Russia has to do something. Now, I mean, if imagine, someone putting someone against the wall and threatening them, at some point they're going to have to push back. And whether they push back in the same way or with the same measures, that's that person's decision. But the fault of this conflict, this economic conflict, lies with the United States and their continued aggression against Russia. And it's really unfortunate because the Russian leaders do not want a conflict with the United States. No sensible leader would want a conflict with the United States. The United States is the leaders of the United States have more wealth and a bigger military than any country in the world. No rational leader is just going to go out of their way and just cause a conflict with the U.S. That's not what's going on, and it shows how we're in a period of economic crisis. So the ability of Wall Street and bankers to make profits is limited. They have their hoarded gold, but their ability to turn it into profits, to invest it and make a profit, is limited in this economic crunch. And so whatever profits can be made are much more competitive, and it's much more desperate to control the markets. They simply can't allow Russia to rise in the global markets, especially with natural gas. There's hydraulic fracking
has made, natural gas in the United States much more abundant. And there seems to be too much natural gas, essentially. The price of natural gas is going down. The price of oil is also, whenever oil exports are rising, the price of oil goes down, and the U.S. can't allow, it's creating false scarcity. The more you can remove your competitor from the market, the more false scarcity can exist, and the more you can remain dominant. Any country that emerges as a natural gas or an oil exporter becomes a rival of the United States, and the U.S. is forced to beat them down. It's a horrific reality. I mean, it's a fight over profits.
OK, Caleb, thanks so much for giving us your interpretation of these sanctions. Speaking to Caleb Maupin, political analyst from the International Action Centre. The UN is calling for an end to violence in eastern Ukraine to prevent a severe humanitarian crisis. Lugansk, the second largest city in the region, has been